Hello! Hi, everyone. So probably a lot of questions for this is, main one, yeah, I guess this counts as a face reveal, and yeah, for people who are seeing this for the first time and haven't seen my channel, my name's T Codes, and I've mainly done trailer mashups with video games over the last 3 years, but recently, especially with everything going on, kind of took a little time off from that. Still play a lot of video games with my Spider-Man Miles Morales stream that I did 2 months ago, but it really it got really busy, and I just felt like doing that or even trying to make something out of it was just not fueling me anymore. So recently, though, I've been really, really, really into writing and watching TV shows, movies, and playing video games. I just didn't have the energy to try and make like cool videos anymore. Even cool videos, I guess I can't really say that. I mean, some of my videos, I definitely look back and I'm like, they're not really the best. I can safely say that. I've never been an expert in that field, but recently I've been contemplating the idea of actually giving reviews about some of these forms of entertainment that I've been watching and playing, and so I decided, why the heck not? Why not give it a crack and see how it goes? And so the first one I'm gonna do is the most recent show that I've pretty much been watching, and that's The Owl House. I've been going through it. This is my second full viewing of the series. I saw the whole thing last month, right before I came back for college. I was on winter break, and it was right in that little middle point of the break where I was really bored. I had nothing else to do. Christmas was gone. New Year's was coming up. I felt like, you know what? Let's look on Disney Plus and see what's there. And there were those few shows like Amphibia and obviously Mandalorian. I saw all those when they first came out. The Owl House was one that, just looking at the cover, really got me intrigued. I really liked the idea of just magic and stuff, and I knew, based off of the fact that Alex Hirsch was tied to this, what I was in for, because I loved Gravity Falls in the early 2010s. I loved that show. I loved the characters. I loved the world. I loved the story. So I knew going into this, it was going to be in the realm of that. No pun intended. So yeah, I remember. So yeah, like I said, this is my second full viewing of the series, and so overall opinions of the show, I love it. I love this show. I mean, I wouldn't. It's not in my top 7 favorite shows just yet. I feel like with season 2, it could definitely climb up. Maybe even if they get a third season. I really hope they do, but I definitely really like the show. I love the characters. I love all the jokes too. There's a lot of good jokes in this, and there's even there's a lot of horror comedy in this too. Like in this first episode alone, there's some pretty messed up stuff that happens, and you're like, how is this? Like, actually, Lucy even makes a joke in the middle of the episode, like, this isn't the PG fantasy world that I imagined. It's like, no, it's not indeed. But yeah, no, I love almost everything that happens in the show. There's a few things that I don't like, and there's one episode I don't 100% like, and it's a filler episode, pretty much. It's not like one of the big episodes for fans that are worried about the big episodes, and for those who've seen the show, you know which big episodes I'm talking about. But yeah, so overall, I really love the show, and so I wanted to give my full, honest review of each episode, all 19 of them of season 1, and I just want to see, pretty much want to see how this goes. I don't know how good this will be or how bad this will be. I just want to give it a crack and see how it goes. So this is episode 1, A Lying Witch and a Warden. I love that title because I grew up because when Chronicles of Narnia, a lion, a witch, and a ward, no, a lion, a witch, and a wardrobe. When that movie came out, that was one of my first big epic movies that I saw when I was a kid. I think I was like 6 or 5. I was young. I was young when I saw the movie for the first time, and just the grand scale of it was so amazing. It was so crazy, and I loved that. And so pretty much just reading this title when I binge watched this on Disney Plus just got the nostalgia going immediately. And the opening bit too, I love the opening bit with Lucid fantasizing this battle with the giant snake, voiced by Alex Hirsch. Love that, love it. I love the line. I love the opening with it. Is like she's calm, but there's still that sense of kid-like feel to it, because it's not 100% epic yet. And then, of course, it doesn't turn epic because she grabs her staff and shoots it like an RPG. The second she did that and said, "Eat this sucker," I was in. I love that. I love it. And then the snake's joke, or just his line, "My only weakness, dying." That was good too. And then, obviously, this is Luce fantasizing it, or actually saying, like, that was my book report. And she has a snake with the Azora doll. And at that moment, I was like, I know exactly where we're going to go with this. Because I think it's just because I've seen so many shows nowadays where it's like, being weird is, it's okay to be different, but there's still going to be that prejudice, I guess, with that. And obviously that's what it was. She's in the principal's office and her mom's trying to, explain, like, ask her about these things, like, where, like she pulls out a giant firecracker and she's like, "What was this for? And what were we gonna do with this?" And Luce is like, "That was for the third act finale." And I'm like, wow, okay. And then, she's like, "I love your creativity," and just basically just all that stick, like, I admire your creativity and all that, but you can't do that here. And she's like, "Yeah," but of course she's like, "But it's what I love." And she's like, and then the mom's like, "Do you remember the last 3 times you got into the principal's office?" Let's see. One of them was a Romeo and Juliet tryout, and it's like I would say it's like a more dubbed down version of what Judy Hopps did in Zootopia, where she stabs herself with a fork, and then she just pulls out some sausages, and I'm like thinking, I wouldn't freak out, but everyone did freak out. I mean, like, if it was ketchup, like Judy Hopps did ketchup with ribbons and stuff, I was like, that I felt like was a little bit weirder. But the second one was the Griffin. That one was weird, I definitely could agree, because, especially when the spiders came out, because there have been incidents, like, when I was in school, where a spider would show up, and just, like, yeah, everyone was freaked out by that. But then the third one, though, with when she's a cheerleader and she's like, this girl does a set of flips, and Luce is like, "Oh, you think that's cool?" Then when she takes her eyelids and just shows the inside, what's weird is when I saw that the first time, I wasn't bothered by that. And I'll admit, I was like, okay, that was creepy, but, but then later in the series, she does it again. I'm not going to say when. But when she did it that time, that's when it got me. I literally remember cringing in my seat, like, "Oh, God, no, God." And pretty much when I saw it this time, that's the same reaction. I just cringed, and I think it's just because I thought it was gonna be like a one-off joke, but no, it's like, no, this is a running gag, and I'm like, oh God, no, I don't like that. It's very creepy. But so pretty much she gets sent to, well, she was going to be sent to reality check camp. Think inside the box. That's such a stupid thing, but it's so funny. And so her mom basically is like, you can't. You have to, it's like, I admire your creativity, but you have to really think about your relationships in your life, because she's like, you don't have any, like, do you have any actual friends, like a non-imaginary, non-reptilian, non-animal or fantasy? And she's like, no, pretty much. And so the mom, like, sends her off, but before Luce leaves for camp, she tosses the book in the trash when her mom's looking, but when her mom leaves, she goes back for the book in the trash, but it's gone. And it's in the bag of an owl, and that an owl is dragging. And in my mind, I'm like thinking, what? And it makes sense, and it does make sense when the episode continues. But in that moment, Luce is like, trash thief, trash thief, and I'm like, that's your word. That's and so she follows the owl into this old house. And is it bad that I thought that was the owl house? Is it bad that that's what I thought it was at first? Because, she goes in, the door closes, and there's this bright glow. And then they cut. And then they come back. And then, then she appears in this tent, and then she runs into Eda the Owl Lady. And fun fact about her, I remember I'm hearing her voice, and I'm like thinking, I know where this voice is. And then I realized, oh no. So, growing up, I watched a lot of movies, watched a lot of TV shows, and one of the things about my family was we usually saw movies and TV. We usually saw movies that were awesome or movies that were terrible, because I think my parents just got a laugh out of how bad some movies were, and one of those movies was the second Alvin and the Chipmunks movie. And the reason why I bring that up is because Eda in this, it was her Wendy Mal, I think that's her name. Yeah, like, it's Wendy something. I know that she's the principal in the second Alvin and the Chipmunks movie. I'm like, I know this voice somewhere, and I looked up on IMDb, and yep, it's her. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my god, she stepped up big time with this show. Because, like, a lot of people compare her to Grunkle Stan from Gravity Falls, and that's pretty much what the show is. Like, you can really take Gravity Falls and Owl House and compare the two. And there's a lot of similarities between, there's Easter eggs everywhere. You have Alex Hirsch on the show. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of Gravity Falls references and stuff. So, she comes in, Luce comes in, sees that Eda has this human collectibles shop, human collectibles, I think, yeah, human collectibles, and so Luce, at first is terrified of all this, because, she's thinking that, one, Eda's gonna eat her, and, there's also this little fairy with huge teeth, and Luce is like, oh, are you gonna tell me this is all a dream? And the fairy's like, give me your skin! And I'm like, ugh! And then, and then, of course, pretty much like Uncle Stan in Gravity Falls, Eda's kind of a criminal. And I love how Luce unintentionally gets Eda in trouble, because Eda shows her some products, like she shows her deodorant, but she calls it candy. She shows her a TV that she calls a black, what does she call it? Like a black box that only shows depressed or sadness. And so Luce fixes it and shows that it's more than just that. It's an actual TV. It has entertainment. Of course, in this entertainment, it was like 70. It was 70s. Is it 70s? I don't know. But everyone gets pulled in, and they're like, I'll give you 40 snails for it. I'll give you 100. And someone's like, I'll give you. Can I eat the person that's in it? It's like, Eda's obviously impressed by this. And then a guard shows up. Of course, it's voiced by Alex Hirsch in a more Grunkle Stan-like voice. Very funny. And of course, Eda books it with Luce. And so they keep flying. And Eda's pretty much presents Luce to the world, which is, in this world, is the Boiling Isles, which I'll admit I was a little bit confused with that. I'm like, Boiling Isles? And I'm like thinking, first thing that came to my mind was the Boiling Rock in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the big fire prison that was in the middle of like a geyser, I think, or no, just like boiling water, pretty much, yeah. And so I was like thinking, okay, so are these just on this giant island that's surrounded by like boiling oceans or something? And it kind of does look like that. And Ida's basically like every single myth that humans have is just stuff that leaked from this world to yours. And it pretty much her proof came in the form of a giant griffin that flies by and vomits spiders. And Luz is like, I knew it. And yeah, Ida's like, yeah, like witches, vampires, giraffes. Like, yeah, and Luz is like, wait, giraffes? And Ida's like, oh yeah, we banish those things. Ugh, creepy. I'm like, dang. Yeah, like that's another thing. Like we all make that joke about like where did giraffes come from? Because how do you get that long neck? Ugh. But so Ida takes her to the Owl House, and Hootie. God, I just like again. I love Alex Hirsch's voice with it. Like it's funny until Hootie opens his mouth and opens it up so wide that it's basically the door. It creeps me out. I don't know. I love that stuff though. And so they go inside, and he's basically like, obviously Luz is like, okay, can I please go home now? And Ida's like, okay, you can go home, but you have to help me with something. And so, she introduces Luz to her roommate. She called him King, who is a demon, but he's not a demon like you would think. I love the build up. It's like you hear stomping and it's like the house is rumbling and a king and it's this dark booming voice, but then it's revealed and it's just him. It's just this little cat. If I really had to describe it, it's a little cat with a skull like helmet, like I don't know my Pokemon. The Pokemon that's brown and has like a skull for a mask, like it's kind of like that. And he basically, he with that he also has like a hat, a little shower hat, and a towel and a rubber ducky. And of course Luz, and of course pretty much what I was like, oh my god, that's adorable. And Luz pretty much is like that. She tackles him and it just like starts hugging him, and the King's freaking out like, what? No, wait, please leave me alone. What are you talking about? And so yeah, it's funny. So basically what Ida's job for Luz is she needs her help to break into this Conformatorium. I think that's what that's called. Yeah. The Conformatorium to retrieve a crown for King, and it's hidden behind this spell-like barrier. It's hidden behind this barrier that only a human can get through. And a part of me was mixed with that, because on one hand, it is a cool idea. It is a cool concept that only a human can get through. But when she does get through later in the episode, and you look at what's there, I'm like, do you really need? Is the barrier even necessary? Like, what? It's like, so the Conformatorium itself is pretty basic, but the prisoners in there aren't. Like, there's one voiced by Grey Griffin. One voiced by Grey Griffin. The other one's voiced by Dana Terrace. Dana Terrace is real, and I really liked her in this. She's the tiny nose head thing with the red hair. Like spitting out these conspiracy theories, talking like literally like a toddler. Like, I want this everything. Like, and it's really funny, but it's basically, they're all locked up because they don't fit in. Like the Grey Griffin's character, she writes fanfics about food falling in love. And yeah, that is weird, but I mean, we've seen weirder fanfics online. So Luz kind of like puts that together. It's like, none of you pretty much did anything wrong. You were just being you. And obviously that's kind of the lesson of the episode, and kind of the basic gist of the show is being weird. It's not always weird to be weird, And so, but they go to get the crown, and I love the fact that it's not an actual crown. It's a Burger King ripoff crown, Burger Queen. Like, that's like the basic riff of it. So Luz gives it to King, and they think, okay, yeah, we did it. But then the Warden, The Warden, voiced by Roger Craig Smith, I love that. I loved him in this. Very intimidating, but then, and it seems like, he really is very intimidating because one of the things he does to Ida is he decapitates her. And it's so scary, and it's like, holy crap. And I love how, Ida, like, screams, ow. Like, she gets decapitated, and Luce catches her head. And Ida just basically screams, ow. And then Luce screams, and they cut to the commercial. And I love that. I love when they do that. I love that kind of bits. And so basically, it's like, that is a weird thing, because, early in the episode, Ida does lose her hand, and Luce is like, oh my god. Or not, oh my god. I guess, oh my titan in this. Ida then is like, nah, that's what happens when you get old. I'm like, ugh. So, but then I love how Luce is holding Ida's head, and the Warden comes over, and it's like, for years you have escaped my clutches, and I must ask you, will you go out with me? It's like, what? And I love it. I love it. I love the guards like, go boss, get her, yeah. And of course Ida's like, I'm not gonna date you. But it's like, I guess we're not in a good situation. Like, Luce, the Warden starts spitting out, like, these cheesy romantic lines, and Luce is like, I hate everything that's coming out of your mouth. And the Warden's like, you stay out of this. And I'm like, she really can't. She's holding the head of the person you're asking out. It's very funny. But, yeah, but obviously, Ida doesn't, well, at first, Ida's like, okay, I probably might have to do it because she's got Luce, he's got King, because, King's a cat, and they got these giant guards that are just holding him down. And so, she's like, but then, of course, she spits in his face. Then what does she do next? Well, actually, no, she doesn't do anything next, because Luce then, she spits in the Warden's face, which causes the Warden to drop Luce. Then Luce picks up Ida's staff and smacks the Warden on the head with it. Then Ida, of course, with her body without the head, then grabs two of the guards' hoods and just shoves it over their heads. And then, of course, they all take off. And then, as they're flying up through the Conformatorium, they start releasing some of the prisoners, and then they get outside, but the Warden is still chasing them, and it's very, very creepy, but very, very badass, when the Warden just starts shape-shifting again and starts running, chasing them, and just through it, then he just leaps out and just lands hard on the ground outside the Conformatorium, and it's so cool, it's so awesome. It's so cool. I love it when they do that. I just love stuff like that. And so, but then Ida gives Luce the portal home and says, take it and run. Just take it and get home. And I'm like, I wasn't exactly 100% sure how to feel about that. I felt like there were a few moments in this episode where I felt like if they spent a little bit more time developing it. Ida's kind of like, Ida says earlier in the episode, like, you're worth more to me dead alive than dead. That's what she says to Luce at one point. But I felt like just her doing a full-on 180 and saying, get out of here, Luce. Maybe if they changed up the dialogue a little bit, she's like, all right, deal. You know what? Deal's a deal, kid. Here's the key. You can go. Something like that. It's like, you're not gonna, you really can't do anything else. And of course, obviously, Luce, she doesn't leave. She actually goes finds the prisoners and rallies them to take down the Warden. And my favorite line in the episode is when Grave Griffin says, and I work in the ancient art of fanfics. I don't know why, I just love that line. Maybe because Grave Griffin said it. I love Grave Griffin. Love her when she's really likable, not like Azula, just Azula from Avatar. That just gives me nightmares sometimes. But then Luce, they get out of there, and Ida and King are, they're like, well, thanks for saving us, now you can go home. But of course, being the show, being the pilot, Luce is like, you know what, maybe I'm gonna stay. I'll stay. You can teach me to be a witch and stuff. And then, of course, Ida's like, humans can't be witches, and Luce drops the old line, well, maybe because they haven't tried yet. And so, pretty much the episode ends with that, and, I felt like Luce, again, the dialogue was a little bit hitsy because he's like, I'm not going back to summer camp. I'm like, you never went to summer camp. That's the whole point. It's like, But Luce, she stays at the house, and pretty much that's where the episode ends, just her there. And she's like, her mom texts her asking how is camp, and she's like, I think I'm gonna like it here. Obviously, big lie, because she's not in summer camp, she's in this other realm. And so, for a pilot episode, I mean, you gotta give it a little bit of leeway, because, they're still trying to find their footing. There are some funny moments. There really are some funny lines in this episode. I really like I really like the characters of this one. I mean, Luce, Ida, and King, and even the Warden. I really like the Warden in this. Roger Craig Smith really brought a pretty funny tone to this. So I thought overall those four were really funny. The side characters are also pretty funny. And just, I mean, I'm pretty much sat there and I just say, you know what, that was really good. That was imperfect, but that's pretty much what it is. So and I pretty much popped in the next episode and stuff like that. Pretty much, but like kind of going back to what I said about the rush relationship thing. Maybe if they made this into a 2-part episode, I don't know if that was the original idea, or maybe they just thought, we can do this in one episode, and that's pretty much what it feels like, is because there are some moments, especially in the opening with, I don't know, I felt like when Luce was in the principal's office and then they cut to her standing outside waiting for the bus, I felt like that was a little too fast. Like, maybe if they developed the relationship between her and her mother just a bit, it doesn't need to be much. Just something like that. I don't know. It's a nitpick. It's a really fine first episode for the show, and I feel like if you check it out on Disney Plus, if you have Disney Plus, it's also on YouTube if you want to check it out. I think it's a pretty good first episode for the show, and I think it's a good starting point, and especially where this series goes. Like, I remember, like, by the time you get from this episode to the season finale, a lot's happened, and obviously that makes sense because it's a show. And so, looking back on this now, like I said, this was my second viewing. I really like this. I really, really look back and I'm like, you know what? The footing wasn't there just yet, but there was still those little bits there that really were good, really cool, really funny, really good. I mean, well, I didn't say like flawless or good. I just good, And so, yeah. All right. So that was my first vlog. I don't know how this is gonna go. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want, you can post down in the comments how you felt about this. I'm going to try and do these every day. So like 3 weeks worth of this is gonna be a thing. So we'll see how that goes, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you didn't, like I said, leave a comment down below if you want to give me any pointers. Like I said, I'm not exactly great at this. I'm 20 years old and I'm in a college dorm room right now. Yeah.